I want to take you through an example of a short-term interest rate hedge. So here's the example. On February 15th, you'll learn $1 million will be available on May 17th. So you've got a big sale and you're going to get paid on May 17th. And what you're going to do is those funds are going to be used for a long-term project later in the year. So you want to put those aside and earn a little bit of interest. And you're going to place them in 91-day Treasury bills at the weekly auction on May 17th. Okay, so you've got this money coming in. You know it's going to be coming in because you know that you're going to close that transaction on May 17th, and you'd like to purchase Treasury bills. So we've got a few questions to ask as we work through this hedge. So we give you some examples here. Don't worry too much about doing the calculations right this second. Let's just think about it. We give you what the current interest rate is on Treasury bills, 8.2%, or it's a discount of 8.2. So interest rates are quite high. This is an old example. You're concerned that interest rates are going to fall in the next 3 months. So you decide you're going to hedge with T-bill futures. Now, here's the thing, is that if interest rates go down, essentially the price of those Treasury bills you'll be purchasing are going up. So you're worried about price rising. So that's a good way to think about it. It's probably better to think about what happens to the price of Treasury bills when you start deciding whether you should buy or sell the futures contract. All right, so we have these questions I mentioned before. I think I left a couple out in the last slide. Should you buy or sell the futures contract? That was one of the questions that I asked. Well, let's think about it. You're concerned that price is going to go up. So if price goes up, you want a position in the futures contract that makes money if price goes up. That means you should buy the futures contract. Okay. Next thing is, what contract should you use? Well, here we're talking about what expiration date should you use. Now, when you pick a contract, you want it to expire after you close out your position. You want it to be as close as possible, but it has to expire after the contract. You can't have it expiring before. In this case, you'll be hedging until May, and there's a June contract, but I believe they're on the cycle of March, June, September, and December. So you have to pick the June contract because you need it to expire afterwards. Okay, June seems to be the closest contract anyhow, but even if there were a closer contract, if there's an April contract, that doesn't do you any good because you're not going to have any protection for that period between April and when you close your position in May. And then we ask ourselves, what would T-bills cost of purchase now? And the reason we do that is we want a comparison. We want to be able to compare how much more it's going to cost us if we do or don't hedge. Okay, and then how many contracts should you use? All right, well, the first thing we do is we work out what the price of purchasing those T-bills is now. And the price is determined by this formula. It's 100 minus the discount times, these are 91-day T-bills, 91 over 360, which equals 97.9272 per $100 par value. So since you're buying $1 million worth, it would cost you $979,272. So keep this in mind. This is the price that you would pay if you could purchase the T-bills right now, but you can't because you haven't made the sale, so you don't actually have the money in hand. All right, there's a futures contract, so you're lucky. There's an exact contract for what you want to hedge. That's not always the case. Sometimes you have to do what's called a cross hedge, and I'll do that a little bit in another tutorial. The T-bill futures contract is priced at 91.32, so we use the same approach for pricing it out. You take 100 minus 91.32, so that tells you the discount. Then you multiply by 90 over 360. It's a 90-day T-bill futures. and you get 97.83. So the price of the futures is 978,300. For whatever reason, we use a 360-day convention here. Later in this example, we're going to use a 365-day example. We're going to use 365 days. I don't know why they do that, but that's the way they do it. All right, so here it is May 17th. And what's happened? The discount has gone down, so your worst fears have been realized. The interest rate has gone down, and the price of buying those T-bills has gone up. But you purchased this futures contract, and what happened here? You also saw a change in the price, and you're actually going to make some money on this futures position. That's going to help offset some of your loss. Okay, so let's go to the next slide here and see what we have. If you didn't hedge, it would have cost you $980,561 to purchase these treasury bills on May 17th as compared to the price you could have gotten in February. So you would have paid $1,289 more. With the hedge, this turns out to be a really great hedge in that you actually made more money on the futures contract than the extra cost. So not only did you offset your loss, you made a little bit of extra money. Now that's not always going to be the case. In many cases, you're not even going to make the full $1,289, but instead of losing $1,289, maybe you lose $120. So the idea of hedging is to protect yourself. It's not to get the maximum profit. It's to keep yourself from losing money. Okay? That's why you buy life insurance. In most cases, most people will live to be 80, 90, even 100 years. But why do you buy life insurance? Well, if you're 30 years old, you have a family, you have a house, you don't want your family to be out in the street somewhere if something happens to you, so you buy life insurance. Okay? You're not doing that to maximize your profit, because probably you're going to live to be 80 or 90, but you're doing it to reduce risk. Okay, so it turns out in this case you do exceptionally well through the hedge. All right, let me talk about one other type of hedge, and I'll just take you through quickly with this one. In this case, you're doing the opposite. You're a corporation and you're issuing commercial paper. Commercial paper is a short-term IOU by a corporation, and it's limited. They limit the number of days to maturity to 270 because by keeping it under 270, they do not have to register with the SEC. In this case, it's a 180-day maturity, and we have this discount. We're going to do the same. Pricing commercial paper is the same as pricing a treasury bill. Okay, so we've got the same question. Should you buy or sell the futures? Well, in this case, you're issuing the commercial paper, so you're worried that interest rates will go up, which means that you'll get a lower price for your issue. So in this case, you want to sell the futures contract. Okay, which expiration date do you choose? You choose the one that's closest to when you'll be closing out your position, but keep in mind here, there's no such thing as a commercial paper futures contract. You're going to have to use, for example, a treasury bill futures, or in this case, we're going to use a futures that's tied to the interest rate LIBOR. And then the last question you've got to ask yourself is, how many contracts do you need? So you're worried about prices going up. I mentioned that. You're going to sell the futures contract. Okay, September contract is closest. And here's, well, I'll have a complicated formula for you to calculate the exact number of contracts. You're issuing 180-day paper, and you're going to hedge with 90-day futures contracts. That means that your 180-day paper issue is going to be twice as sensitive to a change in interest rates as the futures contract you're going to use. So just intuitively, you should double the number of contracts you use. So let's see how this works out. Okay, we'll look quickly through this example. All right, we figure out the price you're hedging $10 million worth. So this turns out to be, once we use this pricing equation, 94.915 or $491,500 you'll receive for this commercial paper issue if you could issue it now. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to use a Eurodollar futures contract. And Eurodollars futures are similar to T-bill futures. They're priced out the same, except this is a private interest rate, essentially a risky interest rate. Treasury bills are risk-free, so this would be a better interest rate to use. You could use T-bill futures to hedge, but a Eurodollar futures will probably be better. Okay. Again, we've worked out the price of what the contract price you'd pay per contract. Okay, per contract, this is $1 million face value, so you're going to pay $970,575. You're hedging essentially a $10 million issue, so you need 10 contracts, and intuitively we said that your commercial paper issue is twice as sensitive to a change in interest rates as the Eurodollar future, so you should double it. You should use 20. Well, now I'll take you through the equation, and you'll see that your intuition actually works out pretty well. All right, there's a formula. You have to calculate the yield on the paper, and here we're using 365 rather than 360. And again, I don't know why. Sometimes they use 365, sometimes they use 180, but we figure out the yield on the commercial paper is 11.16%. We figure out the yield on the futures contract. Again, similar formula, 12.88%. And you can look at these slides if you want to work through these a little more carefully. And here's the formula. The formula says that the number of futures contracts, what we call the hedge ratio, and this is called a price sensitivity hedge ratio. There are a number of different hedge ratios, and I'll do a couple others in different tutorials, is the duration of these two, or the duration of the spot times the spot price times 1 plus the yield on the futures. Okay, that's correct. This should be futures, not spot. Divided by the duration of the futures contract times the futures price times 1 plus the yield on the spot. Okay, so we can plug those numbers in. The duration is the ratio is minus 2. 180, okay, minus 180 over 90 is 2. And so what do we get? This is the size of your commercial paper issue. This is the price of the Eurodollar futures contract. These are the ratios of the two yields. And what do we get? 19.8%, 19.86, actually negative 19.86. You're going to sell these contracts. What did we say? Before we did this complicated calculation, we said you need 20 contracts. So without doing any computation, okay, without doing this more complicated computation, we figured out that you need 19.86 contracts. So if you just use your intuition, you'll be able to figure out, how many contracts to use, and, in order to hedge the risk. Okay. In the next tutorial, I'll show you a stock index hedge.